The US and Israel are expected to hold a virtual meeting on Monday to discuss the Biden administration's alternative proposals to an Israeli military invasion of Rafah. Well, the meeting, which was supposed to take place last week, has become a contentious issue between Biden and Netanyahu. To talk more on this, we're now being joined by Flair Hassan Nahom. She is the outgoing deputy mayor and special envoy for the foreign ministry in Jerusalem, and she's joining us live from Jerusalem. Thank you so much for taking our time and joining us and being here with us.
Thank you so much.
Right. I want to first start by asking you that US and Israel are expected to hold a virtual meeting later today to discuss, of course, the Rafah invasion plans. Now, the White House has clearly warned that Netanyahu would make a mistake if it invades Rafah. However, Netanyahu is adamant on Rafah invasion. How do you see the meeting panning out with such polarizing opinions on the invasion?
Well, first of all, we are engaged in a war that we didn't start, we didn't want, and we really don't have any choice in this. We cannot live with a genocidal terrorist entity that have said again and again that they will continue to commit genocide on the Jewish people in the state of Israel, across our borders, murder our children and grandmothers, and rape our women. This is the situation we're in. And what we know is that the last 4 battalions left of the Hamas fighting terrorists are in Rafah. We also know that Sinwar, the terrorist mastermind behind all of this, is also in Rafah, as are our hostages. He has surrounded himself to protect himself. This is part of his defense strategy. He has surrounded himself by Israeli hostages. And so at some point, we have to go into Rafah to either rescue our hostages and dismantle the remaining part of the infrastructure. Now, Israel has done everything in its power to avoid innocent civilian casualties, and Hamas is doing everything in its power to put innocent civilians in the way to protect themselves. So this is a very difficult situation. We understand that the Americans are concerned. We're also concerned by attacking Rafah, but we don't really have a choice. And I'm assuming talks right now are about how to go into Rafah, invade Rafah, and have least amount of casualties. But I have to tell you, for me, it's very simple what the solution could be, but it seems that nobody is thinking about it. Right. And that is to put the population of Rafah into Egypt temporarily, into the Sinai Desert, and bring them back when the operation is over.
Right. Ma'am, you speak of genocide and how there is genocide in Gaza being committed by Hamas. But the UN just 2 days ago said that Israel has committed acts of genocide in Gaza. You speak of how Israel is trying to save innocents. But as of now, 31,000 people have been killed in Gaza. How do you explain that tally?
Well, first of all, the number that you are quoting is a number given to you by the Gaza Health Ministry. And let me tell you how reliable the Gaza Health Ministry is. When at the beginning of the war, they claimed that we attacked Al-Shifa Hospital, and then it proved to be Palestinian Islamic Jihad threw a rocket and fell in the hospital. We went from 500 dead to 20 dead the next morning. And so we have to take their numbers with a pinch of salt. Let me tell you what numbers you can rely on. You can rely on the fact that we know that we've eliminated 14,000 terrorists. So if we take even their fictitious number and take away the combatants, then we're not talking about the innocent lives that they're talking about. Even so, we don't want to cause any harm to any innocents. And if Hamas really cared about their people, maybe they would let them take shelter in the 700 squares or 700 kilometers that they have underground, instead of protecting themselves and leaving their population completely unprotected. So they're committing essentially a double war crime. They have attacked a country and took its civilians, took hostages, killed babies, raped women, and on the other hand, they use their innocent population to protect themselves. That's a double war crime. And if the UN don't know this, then they are either blind or completely biased.
Right, but talking about the Rafah invasion, Netanyahu has vowed to destroy Hamas, and the Rafah invasion is a part of that. You speak of how that the plan moving forward would be that the Gazans would go to Egypt, and then you bring all the thousands Gazans back to Gaza, back to Rafah. Is that practical as of
It
now?
happens in
How
every
possible does Israel plan on to move forward with the Rafah invasion? And what is the humanitarian cost of it?
We don't. It depends. I have to remind you that we have tried over the last month and a half to come to a deal with Hamas to get our hostages back in exchange for a temporary ceasefire. And it has been Hamas who have rejected the many and the mediated by the US and Qatar deals. And even the US has said that it's Hamas who's rejecting these deals. So you can make your own conclusions.
Right. My last question to you, that this is also the fourth time in the past 2 months that Netanyahu has said that he had approved plans for a Rafah invasion, asserting on how that it is the right thing, both internationally and operationally. Your assessment on that?
Well, like I said earlier, if we know the last remaining terrorist forces are in Rafah, if we know that our hostages are innocent women, children, elderly, are in Rafah, if we know that the mastermind of all of this, Yahya Sinwar, is in Rafah, what choice does Israel have? Israel did not want this war. This is a war that we have no choice but to fight and to win.
But the question is, at what cost? The humanitarian cost is alarming as of now.
Well, Israel from the very beginning, and we can say this for very few conflicts, have had the lowest ratio per combatant of innocent civilians than any conflict in the last 100 years. But somehow the world holds Israel by a completely impossible standards. The people who put the innocent people of Gaza in this situation is not Israel. It is Hamas.
Right. You've also served, the special envoy for the foreign ministry in Jerusalem. Do you think that with the ongoing onslaught in Gaza and rising cost of human lives in Gaza, Netanyahu stands isolated on the global stage?
Well, I don't think we stand isolated. I think we have a lot more friends. It's just that the people who are against Israel make a lot of noise. But thankfully, most civilized countries, especially the ones who understand what homegrown terrorism and also imported terrorism looks like, India being one of them, understands us very well.
Right, right. Thanks very much for taking our time and joining us here on WION.
Thank you.